Hello. In this video we're going to look at the use of the if function in formulas in Excel. It's also known as the conditional function. In any case, what the if function does is it evaluates whether or not a condition is true. If it is, it returns one value based on what you tell it. If its value, or if the truth condition is false, it returns another value. We can use the if function on its own, or we can string several of them together to create what are called nested ifs or nested conditionals for handling more complicated decision making. But we'll look at a straightforward example to begin with here. We've got a bunch of raw scores. We want to find out, we want to evaluate them rather, based on whether they fall above or below a certain value. The value is 60. If they fall below that, we want the formula to return the notation fail. If the score is greater than or equal to 60, we want it to return the value pass. So we're just going to enter in a formula with an if function in this cell here. I'll type equals if. Equals if. And as you can see, our little syntax helper is telling us what needs to go in. So the first thing we need is our logical test. So the test in this case is whether or not this value, B4, is greater than or equal to 60. If it is, we want the formula to return the value pass, in quotation marks because it's text, and if it doesn't meet the logical test, we want to return the value fail. Okay, looks right, so we'll just use autocomplete to copy that all the way down, and indeed it looks like the only person that failed is Theodore down here. Okay. So that's, as I say, pretty straightforward means of using if functions. Now, suppose we've got a more complicated marking scheme. Something a bit more realistic here, where, okay, marks below 60 get a failing grade, but we assign letter grades based on ranges. So what we want to know is a grade equal to 90 or above? Well, if so, then we want to return a letter grade of A. If the grade is less than 90 but greater than or equal to 80, return a B, and so on. So the way that we do this is we decide, well, what condition are we going to evaluate first? How are we going to set this up? Well, let's say we want to look at the score value and say, well, first of all, is it greater than or equal to 90? Then our value, if true, will be A, and our value, if false, will be a series of nested conditionals that wrap all these up. Now, I'm going to show you the completed formula, and it looks a little eye-glazing at first, but it's really quite simple when you unpack it. So we have our first truth condition here, which is, yes, if B4 is greater than or equal to 90, give me an A. And then we've got a nested conditional, which in effect contains all the other ones. Okay? For each one, we evaluate the score, return the next letter grade if true, and then, if false, evaluate the score according to all the remaining range and letter grade combinations. Till we get down to the end here, our last conditional is, well, if it hasn't met any of those, if we're still returning false, if it's between 60 and 70, assign or return the value D, And if it's still not giving us a truth condition, so if anything else, return fail. So that should exhaust any of the values that we're going to see in this score column, as long as we're dealing with, well, actually it should deal with any integer pretty much, as far as I can see. But that's how we handle a nested conditional. We simply include the additional terms on the false side. You could do it on the true side too. You could build this the other way around. It really doesn't matter. But for purposes of explanation, it's often simpler just to understand it this way. So look at the first truth condition, return the value that corresponds to that case. If it's not the first one, we look at all the rest, starting with the next one, and then the next, and the next. And you can nest, I think, up to 250 or so conditionals. You could, I guess if you think this is bad, it could be a lot worse. In any case, I hope this has helped your understanding of formulas. Oh, and by the way, I'm posting this partly by way of background to introducing some new functions that just came in with Excel 2016, and one of the two of them are IFS or ifs and switch, and those functions can actually help us replace or alleviate the need for nested conditionals. They're a lot simpler. They can do a lot of this kind of work, but in not quite such a formal or I don't know, a little bit more transparent way. So especially not just for spreadsheets are about making things easier, but formulas have to be audited too. You have to be able to find errors quickly, and people are responsible for making sure that calculations in spreadsheets are rigorous, and the new functions are easier to inspect than even a fairly simple nested conditional like this one. Anyway, hope that helped. Thanks very much.